Wanted to do a little presentation today about feeding through the early years of we're going to go over what an amino acid and a protein is today. If you don't know what that is already, I hope you do. Then we're going to be talking a little bit about transitioning from breast milk formula to foods. And then once we're into that toddler stage, what happens if I have a picky toddler, which foreshadowing is very common. So if you're in that stage, no worries. We're going to talk through some ways to kind of combat that. So amino acids and protein, what are they? So there are 20 amino acids, and all those 20 amino acids make up a protein. So you can think of amino acids as the building blocks that link together to create a protein, or you can think of these as beads on a bracelet or letters in a word. And then the whole protein is the entire bracelet or the entire word. With that being said, these are important because all of our kiddos, adults, whoever with an inborn error of protein metabolism, or IEM for short, based on that diagnosis, it defines which amino acid is not tolerated. So whatever your diagnosis is, for example, if you have PKU, you cannot break down, you cannot tolerate phenylalanine, and that is one of the 20 amino acids that make up an entire protein. Because there is just one amino acid that cannot be broken down, that is why the entire protein has to be avoided to some extent, which we're going to talk about a little bit. But with that being said, everybody, regardless if you have an IEM or not, all of us still need some protein in our diets, whether it has to be avoided because you have an IEM or not, because protein is very important. It does help us build and repair our muscles. It helps with digestion of foods. It helps to transport the storage of nutrients in our bodies, and it helps to boost our immune system. So that's why it's still important. We all still need it, even if your body can't tolerate it. Where do we get protein? The highest protein foods are going to come from animal-based foods. If we're thinking of infants, it's going to come primarily from mom's breast milk or from regular infant formula. And then as we get into real foods, that's going to be our animal-based foods like chicken, beef, pork, and then of course milk, cheese, and yogurt. And then the only one I didn't put on here is going to be like beans and tofu. Those aren't animal-based, of course, and then lower protein foods are going to be primarily fruits and vegetables. So this is why your child with an IEM, when we diagnose them, we start them on their special infant formula. You might hear your dietitians or at your clinic physicians talking about something like safe protein versus intact protein or natural protein. So that safe protein is going to be the protein that's found in the low protein foods that Margaret is going to talk about, the infant or formulas that your child's on, versus this natural or intact protein is going to be the full protein that has all of the 20 amino acids together, versus the safe protein is the protein that has the amino acids taken away that your child can tolerate, if that makes sense. I hope it does. So thinking about transitioning from formula to some foods, around 6 months of age is when your child will start to maybe show some readiness. It could happen before 6 months. It can happen after 6 months. Every child's different. And as you are going to your pediatrician appointments as well, your pediatrician should be looking for that readiness, milestones that they meet. But usually a good indicator of when to start looking towards doing some solids or purees is when your child is hungry after 8 to 10 breast to bottle feeds, or they're taking around a total of 32 ounces per day, and they're still showing some signs of hunger. Some other good cues is that your child can sit up with help or support. They have really good head and neck control, and also they show interest in eating when others are eating. And I do want to preference while we're talking about foods and introducing foods that all of this should be a very happy and exciting experience for parents, caregivers, and the child involved. I know that it's very stressful for our parents with IEMs, especially if your first child has an IEM. You're working with things that you never thought you had to before. So I know it can be stressful, but this should be a very happy and exciting time for everybody. And that's when you can really lean on your clinic and get the support that you need if you're feeling like anxiety or stress around this time. And with that being said, I know a huge question is probably going to be, well, where do I start when my child with an IEM has to start eating food? And this is very family dependent and clinic dependent on what you want to do. I just say that because, I'm not sure where everybody is here on the call today, but each clinic kind of has a different way of starting like intact protein and like full solid foods with their IEM kids. And there's no one right or wrong way to do it. But I just really urge you, and I would like say, like, if this is the time in your life, if you're not already working with your clinic and your dietitian, to find out a plan that works best for your family and what's like safest for your kiddo, um, which is basically what this slide says. But some two very simple places to start that I would say this is with an IEM, without an IEM, where a lot of parents start once their child starts to show that readiness of eating more solid foods. The two options are going to be either starting with purees or doing something called baby-led weaning. So purees are, what it sounds like. It's going to be pureed foods. And this kind of a pros and cons list here. It does provide like a controlled amount of known food. It can be easier to manage and create less mess, which I think that the purees kind of create more of a mess, but it's all like mushy and like whatever. But it's also more convenient. This can also be a little bit more cost effective because you can make your own purees at home. And then on the other side is going to be baby-led weaning, which this encourages self-feeding and independence in your kiddo. It also helps promote oral motor skills development. And it can lead to less pickiness. This is something that has been really studied, and it's, I would say, kind of a newer way of introducing solids to infants. So these are kind of the two ways, but we're not really going to talk about like, well, how much protein do I give my kid if they have to be on a modified diet? Because that's very clinic dependent. So I'm happy to answer any questions I have about that best that I can. But little specifics like that, I would say please reach out to your clinic and dietitian if that is the time of your life that you are entering into. So kind of moving forward a little bit, once your kiddos are eating and they have more like meals throughout the day instead of just exploring solid foods and kind of getting to that point, we're going to jump to talking about what happens if I have a picky toddler. So the big take home that I hope everyone can take home at least one thing today is going to be this. This is called the division of responsibility, which this is also something that's been very studied and is very leaned on, especially in our line of work as a dietitian with working with kiddos. And this is basically when you are feeding your toddler, who has what responsibility? The parents or the caregiver? And I'm realizing now that these might be outdated slides, but that's okay. The caregiver decides what to eat, when to eat, and where to eat. And the child decides whether they're going to eat and how much. So an example of this is going to be, let's say, for lunchtime, the parent decides that they're going to have a plate of some low protein chicken nuggets, some cut up veggies, and maybe some mashed potatoes. So that's the what to eat. The when to eat, we're going to eat at noon, and where we're going to eat in the kitchen. But the child, if you sit them down in their high chair, in their booster seat, whatever it may be, if they look at that food and they touch it and put it to their lip and they say, I'm done, then they're done. That's how much to eat. If they sit down and they push the plate away and they say, I don't want this, that's okay too, because they're deciding whether they're going to eat or not. So that's the division of responsibility in a nutshell. This can be very, I would say, again, a stressful thing for parents. Like, well, what if my kid doesn't ever want to eat? What if this? What if that? And this is kind of when every parent knows their kid the best, and you kind of get to need to know your kid. And like maybe there are things that can be adjusted from the parent side, like maybe eating at noon is too late for them, or maybe it's too early for them. Maybe they need to do an earlier breakfast and a snack time and a later lunch, or whatever works better for the child. So that's the division of responsibility in a nutshell. Some do's and don'ts of feedings. This can kind of go for when we're introducing solids and as well as toddlers. Do's is definitely introduce and reintroduce new foods a multitude of times. I'm talking up to 10 to 20 times. I know that sounds excessive, but it's definitely that's what it takes to have that have that acceptance of new foods. A good example of this that I think is also kind of funny is the first time, I don't know if anyone has ever experienced this, but the first time your child tries something really sour, like a lemon or a lime, and they make that face and they don't really like it. And then maybe they go back for more and it's the same. And then maybe you do it again and they try it a different day, a different time, and they kind of like it a little bit more. I would say that's the best example. Um, just on a personal note, I have a little brother, and that was the exact same thing for him. He absolutely hated the lemon lime. And then the next time he tried it, he thought it was pretty good. So you never know. Do only introduce one new food at a time because it can be a little bit overwhelming if there's so many things for them to try. And then maybe if they try some, like this baby in the picture, they try some mashed up avocado or broccoli, but they also are trying squash for the first time. It can be a little bit overwhelming. And we do also want to offer new foods first. Um, Also, for the only one new food at a time for a toddler, um, it would be a good idea on a plate to give them like one or two things that you know that they do like, and then one thing that is new along with them, especially when we're talking about getting into the picky toddler stage. So it's also very important to be a good role model as a caregiver and also to make this fun. You know, I'm sure all of us here have foods that we don't like, but if your child is trying them for the first time, then you need to show them that trying new things is exciting, it's fun, it's something not to be scared of. And also making it fun. You know, you can cut things out into fun shapes. You can make dips. You can, you know, pack their lunches and leave them a fun note, things like that. And then, of course, things that we do not do when we're feeding because we want this to be an enjoyable experience. We do not pressure our children, bribe them, restrict, control, or force feed them. Big no-nos are if you sit down and you eat everything on your plate, then you get to do this. Or if you don't finish everything on your plate, then you're going to be in trouble. Like, we definitely don't do that. We also aren't short order cooks, which basically means if your child sits down to eat with your family and they say, I don't like this, I'm not going to eat this, then being a short order cook means you get up and you make them something that you know that they'll like because that's rewarding the negative behavior and that's going to lead to some more pickiness. So we are not doing that as well. So then I'm just going to talk a little bit about trials of taste versus texture. So I don't know if I said this in the beginning. Feel free to, I know Danae said that this is being recorded, but feel free to take pictures of these next two slides, especially because I feel like they're very helpful. But this just kind of talks a little bit about when we are trying new foods, the best way to do that are going to be trying similar tastes and textures of things that your child already likes. So for example, like this example down here, if your child already likes strawberries, a great place to start would be trying also raspberries or blackberries because they fall into that same taste category. So I'll pause if anyone wants to take a picture because it's kind of self-explanatory, but you can just kind of go by the lists. And I would say if your child doesn't like anything on the, let's say the earthy list, then maybe just do that one food. If they're like trying new foods for a first time, do that one food first and see how they respond. And then if they don't like, let's say the beets, then maybe a different day, try some, these are all pretty difficult, maybe try some broccoli the next day. Um, and if it's a toddler, let's say they really like apricots up here, maybe at the next meal, if you're having two things you know that they like, instead of doing the apricots, maybe do some pears or something instead. So, and then same thing over here for texture. Again, pretty self-explanatory. And down here, just it's going back to that being a good role model. It's very good and you should be encouraging your child even just to take a bite or two, or maybe just lick the food and see, touch it to their lips and let them like explore what that feels like. I know texture sometimes is what's more difficult than taste, and sometimes your child can't like express that to you. So I feel like this is a really great list as well. If they like a certain texture, these things might feed things that they also like. So, okay, well, now I'm going to hand it over to Margaret, and she's going to talk about some foods that we have available through Cambrook.
As stated, I am Margaret Hovland, and I am an Upper Midwest Territory Manager for Ajinomoto Cambrook. We just say Cambrook for ease. But I thought this would be useful information to just highlight 4 particular products we have that we kind of call the first foods available. They are the Mix Quick, eggs, our creamy hot cereal, and our patty mix, in particular chicken. And we have many other options available for first foods. These just tend to be the most common or easily used for this age group. So I'll just highlight these. I'm going to start with Mix Quick. This has been around a long time. It's been kind of a flagship product within Cambrook. And what it is just an all-purpose baking mix type product to replace flour. It is designed to mimic Bisquick in that it does have leavening agent in it to give it a little fluff and puffiness to it as it cooks. So some of the ingredients in there that make it unique, there's wheat starch, xanthan gum, there is a fat, and as I said, leavening agent. There are 9 servings per bag. And basic instructions is very simple. It's 100 grams of Mix Quick to 6 tablespoons of water. Now, when we formulate these recipes to make our products, we do use a gram weight as kind of the standard of what we go by. We try to equate that to what would be a normal household measurement. It is going to be about 2/3 cup if you just scoop it out of the bag. Traditional ways, if you are going to fluff it first and then measure it and level it in your measuring cup, it might be a little more than 2/3 cup, maybe more like 3/4 of a cup. So anyway, we do recommend that you use a gram scale, but it's for certain not necessary in order to cook our products. But it's a great product. It's very versatile, and it's also fairly cost effective to have just as a basic pantry staple. A common product that is made with this would be pancakes, and just some tips to make sure that this does turn out properly for you. We always say to preheat your frying pan or griddle and add a little bit of fat of some kind, butter, whatever you want to add. It does provide a nice crispy outer layer if you have a little layer of fat, even on a nonstick griddle. Do not pat down the pancake. It's best if it rises on its own and you'll see some of the bubbles come through, very similar to a typical pancake that you would make at home. And then wait until it starts bubbling before you try to flip it. Another way to make this instead of a pancake is to make it into a waffle. And there is the mini waffle maker out on the market from Dash. And that is a nice option. You'll get the heating element from the bottom and the top. So it turns into a nice crispy waffle. And that might be something that your child likes better. It just has a little more structure to it. And this is when you make a proper pancake. You can see the fluffy texture and they're very good. So if you have not worked with Mix Quick, I would recommend that be one of your first that you play with and try to make some different things with. The next one, excuse me, is a product called eggs. And the important thing to know about this product is that it is not a true egg substitute in baking. This is more of its own individual product. We really liken it to making almost like a crepe texture with it, a very thin pancake. You can see some pictures here. Do not attempt to scramble this in a pan. It'll end up just being kind of a mushy mess. So you do want to spread it out evenly, let it cook all the way, almost all the way through before you flip it. And then it's really a nice option to add vegetables into it or low protein cheese, or you can make anything. You can flip it. You can cut it into pieces, which might be more appropriate for first foods. You see a picture there of just the cut up pieces, like a finger food. And then as your child gets more advanced in their eating skills, you may want to make more elaborate dishes. So on the lower left, this is a mini frittata. It's a mix of the eggs and Mix Quick. And you can add, vegetables and different things into it to make it more of a fluffy frittata in a muffin cup. And then that middle picture, eggs mixed with our creamy cereal. So it makes a very nice, dense, almost like a cornbread texture. And that's also a nice finger food. You can put it into a waffle maker. Okay, and then lastly, I do want to highlight the patty mixes. We have 4 different patty mixes. This one in particular is the chicken patty mix. And I really, really love this product because it's very versatile. You can make the individual nuggets with them. You can form them into shapes. It almost forms a dough when you make it. And so you can roll it out and cut it into shapes. You can also just form them into actual chicken nugget looking balls. The other thing that's nice about this is you can treat this as the binder. So almost like making a veggie burger, you would put a ton of vegetables together, shredded vegetables of different kinds, and then use the chicken patty mix as the binder to hold it all together. So I'm a big fan of really stretching your nutrition with every bite. So anywhere where you can incorporate more nutrition into the base product is what I really recommend. You can see a little comparison there of what is on the market as far as the broccoli littles compared to what this would be, or even our product called Tweaks. And then lastly, so that's on the patty mixes. I did want to just highlight the vanilla cereal. It's a low protein creamy cereal, but it's just your basic hot cereal that you would feed any child. We have it available in a cinnamon and a vanilla. I would recommend, if you are interested in any more information about these products, to just reach out to your dietitian and have a conversation. They can easily reach out to Cambrook and get additional information. Or if you need help with recipes, they may have some specific ideas for you. So good luck. We really are here to help. And so please feel free to reach out if you have any questions.
Cambrook has a wonderful website with some recipes just on there. All of our companies that have low protein formulas, and Cambrook is a big one for the low protein foods. They have wonderful resources on their website. So definitely check those out. If you need help navigating, your clinic can definitely help print them out for you, get you some good resources. But all of these products are great. I have lots of kiddos and families that love these products, use them religiously. So in summary, like I said, if there's anything to take away from this little presentation, I hope it's this, is that there's 20 amino acids that make up a protein. You don't have to remember 20, but it's just that amino acids are what make up the complete protein. Around 6 months of age is when your child may be ready to explore foods. Again, it might be a little bit younger than 6 months, might be a little bit older than 6 months. Just something to kind of keep in mind and make sure at those pediatrician appointments you're checking in to make sure your child is developmentally on track. When it is time for your child with an IEM to start exploring foods, please collaborate with your clinic and your dietitian when it is that time. The division of responsibility for eating, the caregivers decide what, when, and where to eat, and the child decides whether to eat and how much to eat. And then just like Margaret went over, Cambrook has some wonderful low protein food options that are available for our kiddos on protein modified diets.